Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. This video is in relation to Facebook's announcement, or certainly Mark Zuckerberg's announcement of hiring up to 10,000 people, or certainly around that number, in Europe to build the metaverse. Okay, so this is a big buzzword going around for a number of years. It's been portrayed in several different kind of films, the kind of potential and ideology around this. But I wanted to bring to your attention, this kind of thought process around how blockchain is going to be integrated for this to work, how we will be looking at virtual machines, virtual mechanism of how you operate within this system, and also the mechanism of tokenomics and things like that. So I just wanted to have maybe a bit of a brainstorm, if you like, on this particular video. It's quite an interesting topic. It's one that I've kind of been passionate about for a number of years, really. Metaverse isn't a word that I would have used a couple of years ago, I'd admit that. I had the idea in my head and the concept, of course. We'll go through a couple of ideas in a second. But yeah, Metaverse is kind of the labeling, if you like, of this structured new virtual world that we're trying to aim for moving forward. And it doesn't just stop there. There's going to be a multitude of things that bring blockchain and what we know in crypto to this new world as well. So it's a big step for the likes of Facebook to come out openly and discuss that actually this is something that they want to focus on ahead of competitors. I know that maybe Amazon are looking to try and do something similar. There will be a big race for this, guys, no doubt, because the commercial power of this, the interoperability of the games and the worlds that you'll be able to entertain yourselves with through VR and arguably human sensors eventually, as we've covered in previous videos. These kind of sensor products for humans, or being inserted to humans, are being patented right now by the likes of Microsoft, Visa with biometric payments and things like this. So it's all coming to play, guys. We've mentioned this a number of times. But yeah, I think what's really interesting is people's development, as it says here, kind of like with the whole sort of pandemic last year, more and more people were interested in like how education was going virtual. And I know for a fact, I can't unfortunately name some names of brands or companies that are working heavily in an online education system that will arguably replace our essentially archaic and arguably corrupt current educational systems, and being replaced with a virtual interaction and virtual knowledge aspects for kids and mature students, whatever age you are, really, to access education quicker, easier, more efficiently, and be rewarded. And this is one of the key topics that we'll talk about in the tokenomics aspect in this video. So hopefully it's a bit of an eye-opener for you guys, and I think a bit more thought-provoking. This is what kind of other things that we want to do on this channel. We don't want to do chart updates, but we want to understand the concepts of blockchain and what it's going to be for the gaming world, for the virtual reality world, and this whole aspect of what are humans supposed to be doing with themselves in like 20, 30 years, And oddly enough on that topic, I'm just going to grab my newspaper. Yes, a newspaper, couldn't believe it. Oddly enough, I haven't read a newspaper for a long time, but I did pick up a recent one around the London Tube, the Evening Standard in particular, and also the Metro. But there was, of course, very interesting concept around, at the moment, and this is kind of a quotation, the number of unfulfilled jobs vacancies have soared to a record 1.1 million in Britain's labour shortage worsens. And I think that's quite amazing based on the statistics here. A quite phenomenal amount of people not working, and not only this, the actual fact of the amount of people that don't want to work, or they can't be bothered to go and find work. And I know this for a fact. Again, I'm not going to pull out stories and scenarios in particular, but the general consensus of a lot of people who were like furloughed and things like that refused to come back to work. They were just, and at the end of the day, it's your life. You can choose what you want to do. But the excuses I was hearing were quite phenomenal. Of course, this comes off the back of a big statement at the moment in the UK around HGV drivers, so high ground vehicles, talking about like lorries and transportation and supply chain lorries and this kind of thing. And I'm bringing this to your attention for a reason. I'm not just waffling on some political nonsense here. But in general, this has been a big issue of, we can't find in the UK this kind of labour force to help with this. And you think like, well, hang on a minute, there's loads of people here not working. They've got time on their hands, and arguably there's like grants and things to get people involved more in HGV driving. I'm not saying that everyone should have to do that, but it certainly fills a gap, right, if you're looking for another job. And just no one wants them. No one wants them. We've got this Brexit issue that no one can come over. So all of these things, it's not just that, it's shops, bars, pubs, restaurants, all these kind of things in the wake of, I think Brexit is complete and utter nonsense, but it's also a distraction and an excuse, a poor excuse for laziness, in my opinion. But yeah, there's a very big statistic around that they just can't find people to work. And I'm sort of sat there, right, well, what are we adhering to? And we talk about in a few videos back, a couple months ago, about the basic universal income scheme. Now, this is going to replace pretty much most of the iconic benefit systems that we have here in the UK, and it will be global. It will be like, go and do some research, guys, on BUI. You will see what I'm talking about. You might think I'm talking absolute nonsense or conspiracy theories and things like this. Absolutely not. It's a regime that is coming into play. You can even check out the websites, the organisations, when the URLs were created years ago, through various historic information and stuff that you have available to you in the public domain now. But what I'm trying to get to the point of this is that we've got essentially, and I talk about this quite often, a tier 2 society outcoming. If you're working for a private company or some kind of jobs in general, fair play, and you're going to continue. But there's going to be a lot of people out there through their own means of not wanting to work or being stuck in this emphasis of a tier 2 structure. And there was always someone who always kind of mentioned this as like a Hunger Games theory. I'm hoping it doesn't go down that route where we're utilising humans as entertainment. Obviously, this Squid Games thing's come out on Netflix, and you're sort of sitting there going, you can just 100% know in the future this sort of weird world is coming our way, because the rich don't know what else to do with their money, right? So rather than help the world and encourage prosperity and exploration and stuff, they're just going to completely annihilate each other. Absolutely mental. But that's in the future, and we'll see what happens. But this principle of a two-tier structure means that what are these humans and people like you and I, what are we doing as humans in 20, 30 years time when machine has taken over? And again, that used to be a conspiracy and sci-fi theory years ago, but actually we're in a transitional period. We talk about this in things like IoTX and IOTA videos, pretty much any AI related and IoT video related topic that we cover. And it's all about that operability of, right now, we are essentially teaching machine. We are teaching machine to learn AI algorithm, behavior of people. And this will thus encourage two forms of new life. One will be essentially kind of in a good sense to help with healthcare, identifying things quicker, making people healthier, transportation, supply chain, everything like this going automated. But the downside of this is potential control mechanism, but also what do humans do for jobs? And that's when the question of basic universal income comes in, because actually the governments and politicians and all the people above them, and I'm talking about the rich people, the influencers of this world, the real people, know this is happening, know this is coming, and they know that they need some kind of infrastructure of economy. They need to compete with themselves. These rich people need to compete with themselves on their own economic scale. So can you imagine like having billions and billions of dollars and you're on your own kind of spectrum of finance compared to you and I on the low end spectrum, arguably, in comparison to multi-millions and millions of dollars in the bank. Of course, one day, hopefully with crypto, we might have that ourselves and have some kind of influence in the world for the better and the good. But for now, that's kind of the concept I'm trying to drive towards in your minds. Like, they're going to have their own philosophies. And, when we're not in jobs, it's like, well, hang on a minute. We're building all these projects and products and services, but no one can buy them because we don't have any money. So they have to create their own interesting financial system for us to use our own tokenomics and economics moving forward. And this is when you have things like the metaverse coming into play, because actually, not necessarily for boredom busting, but there is nothing else to do. So then we start having other elements of this, this side of the metaverse, because you're looking at a commercial structure here of people out of work. And I'm going to bring this kind of like to the attention, really. Ready Player one of my favorite films. If you dive deeply into the meaning and the thought process of this film, forget the entertainment aspect of it, because it is a phenomenal story and really nice concept and great visual of the future that is coming. The deep down argument here is that you see the stacks and stacks of converted caravans or lorries and containers. And this is something like I've been looking at recently. I thought, if I get rich in crypto, I'd love to help the homeless community. And I think one of the cheapest, most efficient ways of doing that is utilizing old container shipments, like the back of lorries, redo them up, insulate, electric, water, whatever. And arguably, they could be stacked up like you see in places like Shoreditch in London, for example, all the old pop-up stores that are coming up now and across London. I'm sure it's happening across Europe and the rest of the world as well. But what you see in this film is that introduction of society has gone completely split. You're either rich or you're in this tier 2 society, this second tier. And there's stacked up caravans and lorries, and that is all that everyone's got left. There is no, not necessarily happiness. I'm sure people are happy in that world in some aspects, but there is nothing to do. So what do? The companies then infrastruct a system and a world where they are even further controlled, because then they're developing things like economics in tokens, playing to earn, activity to earn, guys. Let's look at that quick before we go back to the metaverse. I've mentioned this in the IOTA video recently, because IOTA have created a structure essentially of activity to earn. This could be simple things, guys, like you helping someone across the road, and then they eventually swipe you some credits and tokens, or you are acknowledged for your good behavior and your score improves. This isn't new. I've known about this in a majority of some Chinese regions, bringing this kind of infrastructure into place. Of course, we have the surveillance mechanism and the AI algorithms and things like that to monitor these kind of things, and the reward system will come in play as well. It's all about this Black Mirror effect. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but definitely go and watch it if you haven't. Black Mirror is usually on Netflix or something, and it's a whole scoring aspect of like going around rewarding people, or going, oh, I didn't like that person, I'm giving them a 1 star. And then all of a sudden, these tokenomics and these reward systems affect whether you can eat in certain places or go and travel, whether you can travel or not, whether you're allowed in things or not, what you can and cannot buy. It's bizarre, but it's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. Look at all these things. They even plan to use smartphone apps to monitor day-to-day behavior. On top of that, they factor things like medical records. I wonder what that entails from the last year. Medical records, financial records, educational records, and state security systems into the ratings. Ask yourself, how does all this work? How's it going to work? I'll tell you how it's going to work. With smart contracts, know your customer. What is that entailing? Blockchain. There's no doubt about it. Medical records, we know for a fact there's a multitude of companies. We cover one, for example, Solve. There's a multitude of them working alongside, even Cardano are working with medical institutions to have your medical records on a data-driven algorithm, so that when AI and IoT and 5G collate together through machine-to-machine learning, everything's on this database. So when you're doing about this scoring and you're going into a metaverse, all of this helps. All of this is related, guys. That's what I'm trying to get you to think about, this new world that we're coming into. Educational records. This is removing things like fraudulent degrees or anything like that, and emphasize, like, you could do an online course and go and learn a load of stuff and it would be on the data. Fantastic, done. There's no need for proof of things, it's already there. We know about all of the other stuff, financial records and this, that and the other through blockchain. The data of how hashes work in transactional data of blockchain, the historic information. It's like what we always say is, if I give you a £5 note or a £5 sterling note that we have here in the UK, you don't know the historic background of that £5. You don't know where it's been. But with blockchain technology, you can follow the exact route entirely of an XRP transaction, for example, or whatever it might be. So you've got this aspect here, but then you've got this whole metaverse arena now as well. So you've got this like play to earn mechanism, because no one else can do anything. But then you've also got the power of commercial aspect. Of course, in this particular film, I'm not going to do any many spoilers, but there's a commercial unit that is trying to obtain the Oasis, which is the name of this kind of world that entails many, many different worlds and different games and attributes. But look at all this, you changing of skins, changing of appearance and all this stuff. NFTs, guys. This is where blockchain really kicks in. And we know for a fact there's companies, projects like Engine, You've got Chili's, you've got all of these things going on with tokens and NFTs, creating, melting, buying, selling, and even NFT into real world. So this guy, for example, the main character here, he buys a outfit in the virtual world using tokens and credits he's got from winning games, and then he buys the physical outfit in the virtual store, and then the next day it arrives in a box in the physical world that he can then put on and feel things, because like that's what VR gaming is going towards, and I think that's going to be really cool. But it's kind of like that aspect, and that's why it's really of interest to me, because I love gaming. I love this concept of what they're trying to achieve, but I also see like the downside. It's kind of like removing humans from their mechanism of being human, and then you're starting to be able to be who you want to be, where you want to be, how you want to be, and that's not my place to say whether that's good or bad. That's down to the individual to think, actually, I'm not happy with myself. I want to be something different. And no one should ever question that. Everyone should have the right to do and say what they want within reason of being happy that everyone else can decide what they want to do at the same time. And it's really interesting, guys. If you haven't seen the Ready Player One film, I fully recommend it. And it really does open your mind up to the possibilities of what blockchain is capable of. Even in the real world in this film, being chased like drones and stuff, that's all on AI. No one's controlling those. They just got facial recognition and they're trying to hunt down these people. There's that aspect coming for sure in the security and policing environment. But when commercial companies are so much powerful now than governments and infrastructures like emergency services, etc., they have this weird control mechanism of privatization, security, and policing. This is where the danger might come in. But there's other films, guys, like Surrogates. This is more about robotics. But it's the same principle, and again, I'm not spoiling the film for anyone that hasn't watched it, but it's that mechanism of finding someone in the real world that's not actually real, and then finding their real person where they actually live, and realizing that they're a completely different person compared to what they are in the virtual world. This is a very nice early concept, 2009, of a metaverse, essentially the futuristic version of the possibility of like the Matrix kind of thing. I mean, Matrix I haven't added to this list. I've completely forgot about that. But the Matrix, of course, what is real, what isn't? I'm getting confused sometimes now. I feel like the soul has been ripped out of many things. It's too commercialized, it's too materialistic. And people are too busy following influencers and worrying about that rather than their own lives. It's crazy. I, Robot, 2004 film, based, I believe, was it 1950s or 1960s novel? I mean, to have that sort of vision back then is fantastic. And this is, of course, the film played upon that novel. You could look at Orwell, I think back in late 1800s or early 1900s, with his concepts and theories around the future, very much entailed around this. But 2035, technophobic cop investigates crime. So this is about more robotics, but I'm trying to pinpoint things in this film as well. Cashless payments, tokenomics, AI algorithms of building demolishing homes based on machine operability, no people involved. And again, same concept. There's like one company, I bet we know who that's going to be in the near future, that was delivering things via drones that operated every single infrastructure, product and service. And then you've got commercialized units. People can't buy things because there's no jobs, but they get given a robot each. Because the commercial aspect, the companies in their higher levels have their own game to play now against each other. And they're essentially, it's no different really to the climate we're in now, where money has been printed. It isn't real, it doesn't exist. It's just been printed as a mechanism for us to be not necessarily controlled, but to be in a system. And this is exactly the same principle. That it's just a method of control. Who is doing this, guys? It's mental. And of course, one of my other favourite films, Tron Legacy, more about being in the grid and fighting for the users. It's not so much a bit like Ready Player One, but it's that principle of entering essentially another world where you're still you, but you're slightly different looking, or there's a different mission and this, that and the other. Aspects are still the same of this kind of world. There's a multitude of examples here, but we're going back to this Facebook metaverse. I want you guys to think about, when you're looking at your investments, we talk about the gaming ones, like you've got things like the actual games, like Illuvium, for example. You've got Decentraland, you've got Sandbox, which you cover quite a lot on this channel. And these are just the beginning. They're kind of like encouraging a mindset that actually Yeah, and I always mention this. I can't remember if it was a game or not, whether it's a game can class as a game, but it was something ridiculous where you were basically in a virtual world, you as your own. It's kind of like The Sims, but it was actually you could control it and be who you wanted. And it was way back in maybe 15 years ago now, or 10 years ago. And it was very popular. And that was kind of like the beginning, but no one was ready for it yet. Some businesses got the idea of it that you could go into different office rooms and draw things on walls and stuff, and you'd be like in a boardroom, but virtually. But I don't think it kind of cottoned on. But I think we're now in the Generation Z, as it were, has come on board. Very much more operating within screens and smartphones, apps, games, all these kind of things. And that's what it's kind of pushing more towards. And we saw the big thing about Zoom last year when companies were looking majorly into that to operate conference calls on a regular basis wherever they were. And then you got things like the VR, AR, PC, mobile devices and game consoles, which in itself is a giant market and giant consumer focus. It's already committed $50 million for building the metaverse. I think they're going to need a lot more than that. But of course, already operating people with avatar versions of themselves. This is not new, guys. This has been something in play for a long time, and I can assure you, a lot of people are going to be distracted by it and find it fun, when actually it's just reality, a complete distraction to encouraging you to not do anything and be happy about it. Not own a thing and be happy about it, because you can earn things, because you can win things. And that whole mentality of the human nature these days is to go down that route. And it's kind of scary, but exciting at the same time. And as I've said in previous videos, when I looked at things like Agenda 30 and the Davos Agenda, all these things, even Agenda 21 building up to the new legislation of 2016 signed by over 150 countries for Agenda 30, I don't fear it anymore. I look at the opportunity and I go, okay, do you know what? I've had enough of it. I used to be so moralistic for so long. And now we see all these rich people just getting on with their lives, cracking on. And meanwhile, there's a diversification occurring, arguments of opinion. Opinions are good, by the way, but there's too much division in people. And I see this horrible world occurring. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to start investing in things that I know are coming, like this, like these principles and activities, and try and get out of this system to avoid it. And hopefully, once you're out of that system, you can start figuring out who's really in charge, getting into those holes, and completely, hopefully, trying to bring it down, trying to make the world better somehow. I think this is an opportunity for us as crypto holders and investors, not just to make money for ourselves. You, of course, reward yourselves with the commitment you've made with investments. But for me, I have an ultimate goal to encourage a better world. And unfortunately, you need money for that. We're not in a Mother Teresa era anymore, where we can just walk around, religiously and help people, care for people. Your money needs to be had to make real influence, proper influence, campaigns, education. It doesn't mean I've lost that inside me, that thought process. It means that I'm realistic and logical and realize what needs to be done. So this metaverse, guys, is very interesting and exciting. It's going to create some key jobs. That's a great thing, of course. But I tell you now that there is good and bad to all of these things, and I want you to think about all these kind of different films, these kind of different ideas and thought-provoking ideas, and think about your investments. So when you're looking at things like in the gaming sphere, IoT, AI, really realize what's coming, what is actually going to make a difference in 5-10 years time. Not meme coins. I'm talking about real fundamental assets, guys, because things like AI we talk about all the time, supply chain mechanism, things like AI drones going to harvest and seed things in the fields by themselves based on the algorithm of the weather, based on the algorithm of supply and demand. We don't need people anymore. It's coming. So what do the people do? They get them put into the metaverse because there's nothing else to do. And then they go and try and win things. And then all of a sudden your life is completely out of control, out of your hands. And that's it. That's the goal. Control. Let us know what you think in the comments below about all this. I'm going to wrap this video up, guys. I just thought it'd be an interesting point to talk about. But just look at the different things. Look at these black mirrors. Always look at them with open eyes, because they're a mirror to the world. Hence why it's called Black Mirror, I guess, in some aspects. But all of these things are coming to us. And some people are going to go, oh, this is amazing, it's exciting. And I do think this is exciting to an aspect. I'd love to put on VR goggles and jump around some lunatic universe, racing things and doing things in my spare time. But there will come a time of crossover, the red and blue pill. What is real and what isn't? Because I guarantee to you that a majority of the population out there will jump into these games and not want to come out. Whether they're depressed about their own lives, because of the world that we're in and because of the scenarios going around the world, we've been left to feel this way. If no one can see that, then I don't know what hope we have for the future. All I will say is we're all here for each other, and that I hope that people will open their eyes to realizing the good and the bad side of this and make their own collective decisions, their own opinions, their own thoughts on this. But I see a strange world coming. Guys, I'm going to wrap that up there, but just remember, blockchain and crypto is behind all of this, no matter what. Take care, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.